Hello, my name is Eleanor Alford and I am an oboist studying at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. I am also a podcaster and a content creator about all things oboe and music. And today I'm going to be answering Google's most asked questions about the oboe. So let's get into this. Number 1. What is an oboe? An oboe looks a lot like a clarinet, but it's not a clarinet. And it is a part of the woodwind family. So if you think oboes, clarinets, bassoons, flutes, basically anything that is or was made of wood and you blow through. An oboe is quite complicated, but honestly, it's really fun. Okay, why is the oboe considered a challenging instrument to play? Well, I think largely because of the reed. The reed's quite difficult. A reed is, here, can I show? I feel like I'm a content, showing makeup, but here we go. This is a reed, and the reed it's a double reed, which means that there are 2 pieces of cane and they vibrate together, whereas maybe a clarinet has only 1 piece of cane. And it's honestly quite difficult to kind of control. It takes a long time to get good at. And it's interesting because I feel like when you look at maybe a school band or just generally, I feel like the oboe progresses slower than the other instruments. So maybe that's why it's a bit harder. When I first started playing the oboe, we went to a school thing and I played on the reed and one of the band teachers said it sounded good, so that's why I picked the oboe. So yeah, but from then on, yeah, it is quite difficult. Okay, what is the typical range of an oboe? An oboe can play very low and it can also play very high. I usually practice with earplugs when I'm playing quite high, but the lowest note on an oboe sounds something like this. And then an oboe can go quite high, so very, very high. And that is a typical range. We have a lot of notes to choose from. How do you produce a sound on the oboe? Gosh, I feel like this is an interesting question because I just do it. But I think it's a combination of air. So you have to really put a lot of air through it. And then when you go through the oboe, you do something called have an embouchure. So it's a specific way of holding your mouth when you play. Usually your tongue might start the note, so or you might just go for it without the tongue. But what I'm doing is I'm really putting support on near my stomach and letting the air just shoot right up through the reed and out the end of the oboe. And then, of course, there's fingers for notes. That's important too. How can tone quality be improved on the oboe? That is a question for the ages, honestly. I think a great way to improve tone quality is through your air. I feel like a lot of the time when I am struggling with tone, all I need to do is just take a better breath and just go for it. In fact, I recently made a video for a friend, a happy birthday video. I played the happy birthday song and I did 2 takes. In the first take, my tone was okay, but it wasn't very good. And then I watched it and I was like, you know what, I could do better. So what I did was I took a much bigger breath. I had much more support and I just let the air kind of speak for itself. And it was a much better video. And yeah, I was really happy with it. What is a double reed? A double reed is, my mind just said a nightmare. It kind of is sometimes. So a double reed is it's 2 pieces of cane, and because it's double, there's 2, and it goes like this. And then when you play it, they vibrate. And it's the 2 pieces of cane are tied together with some thread, and that's put on something called a staple, which is this part down here. It's the brown bit, and then sometimes if you want to, you can add tape up the top like this one, and yeah, it's just the thing that actually makes the noise. Because if you just go, there's no noise. So you need the reed. It's very important. How long does an oboe reed last? It really depends on the reed. It really depends on the reed. If you like make a reed that is so sturdy and good, it might last longer than one that maybe isn't as great. For me, a reed can last anywhere from like a week to maybe a few weeks, maybe. It depends on if you accidentally break it. I remember the first time I broke a reed, my first ever reed, I broke it by walking up the stairs and I smashed it into the wall. And I was supposed to play for like my family. And I was so scared because they were expensive. And I was like, oh no, I've just broken my reed. And like, then I'm gonna have to like tell my parents and they gonna have to get me a new one. Like I was like, I don't want them to have to do that because it's expensive. And then so I was like, actually, I don't want to play. And they were like, why? I was like, I don't know. But that's because I broke my reed and smashed it against a wall. But there we go. But yeah, no, reeds, if you take care of them, they can last a few weeks, which is very good. How long should an oboe reed be soaked? This depends on the type of reed. I lived in the States, and when I lived in the States, they only needed to be soaked about 30 seconds or so, but I live in the UK now, and it's a different type of reed, and now it's a few minutes, just because the water needs to really get soaked into the cane for it to be able to vibrate really well. Honestly, when I soak my reeds now, because it is a few minutes, I'm like, okay, I'll soak my reed, and then I'll, go do some do the hoovering or start the washing, and then I come back 10 minutes later and the reed's like, because it's way too soaked. I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. But a couple minutes is good for an oboe reed. Why is an oboe reed sometimes too hard or too soft? Oh, so many reasons. And I think it really depends on the reed. You really have to learn, and I'm still learning this, I have to learn what actually needs fixing. But I think a big thing is the actual cane itself. If the cane itself is quite a soft cane, then it's going to be softer, and likewise for hard. If it is hard, you can scrape it. You can keep scraping it, but sometimes it is just too hard. And we have, as oboists, lots of different funky machines that tell you the hardness of the cane. Yeah, there's just a lot of different gadgets for oboes, honestly. Okay. Should oboists learn to make their own reeds? Yes. Yes, 100%. I think it's weird. Like oboists, we have to make our own reeds. Clarinetists, saxophonists don't have to do that, but as oboists we do. And yeah, no, it's very important to make your reeds, because then you have to make them for your specific face and style and how you want to sound. Honestly, like oboists sometimes just make reeds for specific things. So like, I need a reed to sound like this for this thing, and you can't necessarily buy something like that. I remember when I was in the States, I was learning a lot about making reeds, and then now when I'm in the UK and I study at the conservatoire, I'm also doing like so many hours just making reeds. I'm still working on it and getting better at it. But yeah, I think it's so important that there is, in most universities and conservatoires that have an oboe department, there is a room for reed making. And so that's how important it is. You need to know how to make reeds. Although if you're just starting out, and you're just learning, then that's fine. I didn't start making reeds until I was like, I don't know, at least 6-7 years into playing oboe. I started when I was 9. So for those first years, I was just learning how to play. So, okay. Why does an oboe leak air? I think probably because there's a leak in the oboe. If you are playing and your oboe is, and you think your oboe is leaking, yeah, it's usually because there is a leak somewhere, maybe a pad, because like the keys, if you can see the keys, there's the key, and then there's a pad underneath the key, and if the pad isn't properly situated, then that might also leak. A great way to test this out is to take apart the oboe. Well, this is put together really well. Okay. Take apart the oboe and then kind of cover the holes so nothing is is open, and then just, and if you can't hear anything, then there's no leaks. But if you can, it's either your mouth, and then you have to fix that, or it's a leak. But that's a great way to practice, or to figure out if your oboe is leaking. Is the oboe a good instrument for beginners? I think it depends on the beginner. I feel like any oboist was a beginner, so yes. I started like playing instruments when I was 8. I started on the viola, and then I added in the guitar, and I now still do that, and I play classical guitar as like a hobby instrument when I'm too stressed about the oboe. And then I started playing the oboe, so I had some background of kind of what music was, how it worked, but I didn't play any other wind instrument before I played the oboe. So I think, if you want to play oboe, then, start playing oboe. It's a great instrument. And yeah, it's hard. It is hard, and, it can be hard at first, but, like everything's hard until you learn how to do it, and then it's not so bad. So yeah, go for it. All right. How long does it take to learn to play the oboe? I mean, I'm still learning. It takes a bit of a lifetime. I mean, the thing is, it depends. Like, I know all the notes, and I know how to play everything. Like, if you give me a piece of music, I could probably, figure it out. I might need to practice it, but, I'm not going to be like, how do you play this note? But when it comes to like phrasing and shaping and how I want to play something and what I want to bring to it, that, I mean, you never stop learning how to do that, I feel like. And I think that that's a great thing. I think as people, we should always be students of something, right? We should always learn, even if it's not like official. We should always be learning in some way. So yeah. Okay. What are some good beginner pieces for oboe? Oh, this is really good. Off the top of my mind, I'm thinking, if you want to get into like more than just like studies or like, like really basic pieces, if you actually want to like play like a piece written for oboe, I think the Cimarosa oboe concerto is a great one to kind of work on. It can be quite like difficult if you make it, but it's also really a really good way to kind of, if you are like more of a beginner or more on the like learning side of playing, then I think that's a great piece to start off with, because it has there's like fast passages, but then there's also slow passages, and there's a lot of opportunities for you to really practice like intentionally doing dynamics and phrasing and all the things that you want to do. So maybe that's a good one to kind of do. If you have like a basic idea of the oboe, the notes, but you want to be like, I want to say that I'm, playing a concerto, like a real concerto, then I think the Cimarosa oboe concerto is a good one to start off with. What's the difference between an oboe and an English horn? There's a big one. Well, an English horn is much bigger. It sounds much lower. It's also pitched differently. So if I play an A on the oboe and an English horn player plays an A, like they play the same fingering, it'll sound a bit different. It's different notes, so they're pitched differently. And the English horn, looks quite different. It's much longer. The bell is more bell-shaped. This is just like whoo, and the bell for an English horn goes like this a bit. There is something called a bocal, which instead of putting a reed in, there's like a stick that comes out and it kind of curves, and then you put the reed on that. Although the English horn reeds and the oboe reeds are different reeds, so you can't really play English horn with an oboe reed, although I have tried, and it makes an interesting noise, but I don't think that any orchestra would want that. So yeah, it's very different. There's also different ways of saying English horn. So like in the States, I grew up saying English horn, but in the UK, it's more known as cor anglais, from like the French side of it. So there are multiple ways of saying English horn. It's interesting because when I see, like when you get music, classical pieces, a lot of the time the words will be in different languages. So like oboe might have different languages, or like English horn, you have like English horn, cor anglais. I've seen corno inglese, so that's Italian. It's just a lot of fun things. I get a kick out of that personally. Okay, why does the oboe lead the orchestra when tuning? I actually recently kind of relearned this. I knew it and then I forgot it and then I learned it again, but that's because the oboe has such a distinctive sound, and kind of, I suppose, historically it's been hard to change itself, that the orchestra just tunes to it. And the oboe has such like a sound that kind of pierces the whole, so like everyone can hear it. And so that means that, the violinist in the back desk all the way over there can still hear the oboe. Whereas if another instrument that maybe was a little bit quieter or not as piercing, they might not be able to hear it. The oboe in an orchestra usually gives 3 tuning A's. So like, so if you have ever been to an orchestra and when the lights are dimming, the oboe plays that note. That's what they're doing, they're tuning. And usually the oboe starts with the woodwinds. So they give an A for the woodwinds, all the woodwinds play, and then an A for the brass, and then an A for the strings. And the concertmaster, which is like the first desk, first violinist, will usually tell the oboe to give the A. And sometimes we'll also tell the oboe how many A's to give, because sometimes it changes. I have been in concerts where I thought that I gave, this many A's, but then the concertmaster goes and tells me, actually, you're doing this, like through the orchestra. So they're just like 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, I did not know that. And then it was fine. So that little communication, if you go to the orchestra, you might be able to see that between the concertmaster and the oboist. Why does the oboe have such a distinctive sound? I suppose because it's an oboe. I feel like any instrument has quite a distinctive sound, but that also kind of goes right into the piercing idea of the A. Because the oboe has such a distinctive sound, you need to really make that A loud. How many oboes are usually in an orchestra? It depends on the orchestra. I think 2, 3. 2 or 3, and then there's an English horn player. So something like that. I've been in orchestras where there have been more oboes, where there've been, just like only 2 oboes and then an English horn. Sometimes in an orchestra, you might have an oboist who is playing both the oboe and the English horn. Not at the same time, but they'll have like, if you see, they'll have like a stand next to them and they have the English horn and then they switch and then they go back. And sometimes that is really stressful when you do that, especially if you have like 2 bars to switch an instrument and you're like, and you're trying to do it very fast and then you have to be on time. It's a bit stressful. But other times you have like, 20 bars and you're like chilling, you're like, whatever, it's great. But yeah, no, that is how many oboes are usually in an orchestra. That's very different from like a million violinists at the front. But that also goes into the fact that the oboe does have a very loud sound. So if you had 20 oboes in the orchestra, that would probably not sound good unless the oboes were really good. What are some famous oboe solos? Oh my gosh. I think there's so many. I feel like the one that I really like is, and I just finished playing this, Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 4, the second movement, has a really lovely oboe solo. My reed's pretty dry, but it starts like this. And that's like a melody throughout the whole movement. And like underneath it, the violins or the strings are going plug, plug with their strings. It's like a very nice, it's a very like open solo. Like that's literally how the movement starts, and like with the oboe, and you're like, it's very stressful for oboists. Some other famous oboe solos, I'm like blanking. There's one in the Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony, and I don't remember it from memory, but it starts on a high C, so like yeah, I don't remember it, but it starts on a high C, and it is like in the third movement, if you've ever heard it, it's a very gut-wrenching movement. Like, I don't think I have heard this movement without feeling like emotional. And there's a section and the strings are going, right, and they're going very quiet, and all of a sudden you hear this oboe solo is like da-da, da-da, and then the strings are like, and it's like really, really emotional, but like very exciting. And that one's like really difficult to play, but it's so much fun. Yeah, I think there are like so many different really, really good oboe solos. There's one that I'm currently working on actually for an exam, Stravinsky's Pulcinella Suite. There are a few. There's one that's like da 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 da. I feel like that one's like really, really nice. I have a feeling, yeah, it's like really bouncy. I really like it. But yeah, no, there are just so many different oboe solos in like the famous repertoire, and as oboists, we kind of need to know them and be able to just play them, and just know them very well. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out more about me as an oboist, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at eleanor.oboe. So that's at ELEANOR.OBOE. And on YouTube at confident.musicianing. So it's just the word musician and then ing. And I also have a podcast called the Confident Musicianing Podcast. You can get it anywhere podcasts are, anywhere you get your podcasts. And that is not just about oboe, but just about general like strategies for practicing, for auditioning, being a music student. I recently did an episode about avoiding burnout as a music student, just like general music making things. So this video is brought to you by the lovely Gear for Music. Thank you so much, Gear for Music, for having me. And if you want instruments, Gear for Music. It's great. All right. Yay!